Welcome back to the Fantasy Funday podcast, everybody. I hope you had a great weekend and enjoyed the first week of football. It's amazing. I can't believe it's back already, and let's get after it. I'm going to start off this waiver wire segment tonight. My Monday show is going to be my waiver wire show, and the first thing I'm going to talk about is my own personal fantasy record over the weekend. I have 9 total teams. I ended up going 7-2. One of my losses was because of Raheem Mostert getting injured in the first quarter by the Detroit Lions. I lost by 8 points in a non-PPR league. I'm sure based on what his backup did, I would have gotten those 8 points. My second loss, this one hurt a little bit more. Lost kind of big here. Had Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire on the same team. This is a PPR league, point per reception. Somehow, the 3 of them combined for about 9 points. And the 2 Aarons, Rodgers and Jones, Aaron Rodgers had -1 point. Aaron Jones had 2 points. Again, this is a reception league. The 2 of them combined for 1 point. I don't think that's going to happen again, ever, most likely. The odds of it are beyond lottery odds, for that matter. And I'm just going to ask to Aaron Rodgers, is this Jeopardy? I don't know. I don't think it's a big deal. I think he's going to come back at some point this week and give us his famous relax. All right, moving on. Some game notes. Game started yesterday. The first half was a little bit slow. I think they were shaking off some butterflies. Once they settled in, we saw some incredible football. First big game I'm going to look at here is Pittsburgh at Buffalo. Pittsburgh went on the road. Underrated again this year. Tough team. They won at Buffalo. Second game. Green Bay at New Orleans on a neutral site. I don't know if Green Bay, as I mentioned, got caught in that hurricane that made them go play somewhere else. But again, Green Bay cannot be this bad again. Another game, Philadelphia at Atlanta. Atlanta, just as bad as Green Bay. They were actually at home and got beat really bad. I don't think that's going to continue. Look for them to bounce back next week. And then 2 teams that are really strong. Arizona Cardinals went into Tennessee, and I think that they actually are this good, and I do not think Tennessee is that bad. I just think Arizona is a really good team. It's going to be a lot for people to handle this year. And the last game, a tough Miami Dolphins team goes on the road up to New England, pulls out a 1-point victory. Just a tough win on the road. That Dolphins team's coming up, and I think they got big things ahead of them in that division. All right, no doubt the coaching call of the week goes to Cleveland. Kevin Stefanski, very impressed with that Cleveland team. I was last year. I continue to be this year. They scored the first touchdown of the game, ran the ball down Kansas City's throat using Nick Chubb on that first drive. Chubb had no issues getting in the end zone, and then Stefanski actually goes for 2 on the road in Kansas City and gets it. They almost pulled that game out. Any given Sunday, they could have won that game. But I do give that Cleveland team and that coach Stefanski a lot of credit for making a bold call like that. I think that's a good indicator of what this Cleveland Browns team has ahead of them this year. I think big things are coming for them. All right, moving on to the Mike Tyson, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face segment. This is the surprise when you wake up on Sunday morning. You had big plans after your draft to play Trey Sermon, inactive. Zach Moss, inactive. Wayne Gallman, maybe you would have played him if you're in a 14 or 16-man league, inactive. And then you go on and you see the Detroit Lions with their starter switch at the last minute. They put in JaMycal Williams over Swift, and they both end up doing great. So it really doesn't make a difference, it looks like, for now, who starts in the Detroit backfield, as there's going to be a lot of usage between the 2 of them. But that was a switch, and it probably scared some of those DeAndre Swift owners. And they did okay yesterday. And then the last thing, and I don't understand what's going on here yet in San Francisco, Brandon Ayuk. I don't know what's going on. They just said his mind wasn't in it, or he wasn't ready for football yesterday. But the gentleman who came in behind him, Trent, he caught some balls and actually got a touchdown. So we'll see what happens with there. All right. Unfortunately, injuries, as we know, are a part of the game, especially fantasy football, on a week-to-week basis. And I'm going to call this segment the Next Man Up segment. Some notable injuries out there this week. As we mentioned, Raheem Mostert did get hurt. He looks like he's going to be on the IR for about 8 weeks or so, or out for 8 weeks. You're going to be looking to Trace Sermon and Elijah Mitchell, backing him up, and they might do pretty good there. Ryan Fitzpatrick, quarterback, he's out for a little while, 3 weeks, I believe. He's got a gentleman, Tyler Henke, coming in behind him. I don't know anything about Tyler Henke. I'm sure we'll find out, but we'll go through it later. There are some quarterbacks for you to pick up in case you were rolling with Fitzpatrick. And then Jerry Judy, the reach of the late summer of the wide receivers. He looks like he's going to be out for a little bit here. They got some studs over there. Of course, they got the big tight end, Noah Fant. But then they've got Cortland Sutton that everybody knows about. And then Tim Patrick, which we'll talk about on the waivers. He's going to be a big target there. All right, moving on. We are going to go to the quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, and defense waiver wire segment of this show, because it is the waiver wire show. All right, I'm going to start off. Best quarterbacks to look at here. Jameis Winston, he's only owned in 44% of leagues. Threw 5 touchdowns or something yesterday. Run, don't walk to go get Jameis Winston. Jared Goff put up some points yesterday, surprisingly, for the Lions. He's only owned in 7% of leagues. You could take a look at him if you're in a deep quarterback league. Tyrod Taylor down there in Houston. I talked about him over the weekend. The Houston team is not as bad as advertised. He's only 4% owned. Teddy Bridgewater over in Denver. We spoke of him a little bit. 11% owned. I think he's going to have a decent season. This one surprises me. Ben Roethlisberger. He's not even the oldest quarterback in the league, but he's only 39% owned in most leagues. I'd say it's a safe play to go out and get Big Ben. Just throw him on your bench in case something happens. And then 29% owned from the Dolphins, Tua Tagovailoa. I think I got that wrong. I know I got that wrong. Tua, please excuse me. You're only 29% owned, though, and I think that number should go up as the season progresses. All right, those are the quarterbacks. Moving on to the running back targets. We talked about him. Elijah Mitchell stepping in for San Francisco, having a big game once Mostert went down. He's 9% owned. The other guy there, he actually scored a touchdown yesterday. This guy's a sleeper, in my opinion. JaMycal Hasty, very good player. Let's see here. Latavius Murray and Tyson Williams. I am filming this right now at the end of the fourth quarter of the Monday Night Football game, but Latavius Murray is 63% owned. That number should go up. And then Tyson Williams, who looks like a downright stud in this game that's going on right now, he's 79% owned. I don't think he should be on your wire. There has to be maybe 20% of teams that don't, or leagues that don't do anything. I don't see this guy being less than 90% owned in the next 3 days. So if you can go get Tyson Williams, run, don't walk, go and grab Latavius Murray as well. Here's another guy, Mark Ingram. I think he got 24 or 26 carries yesterday, an insane number. He's only 21% owned. I think he's a decent play to put on your team. Another guy, a rookie I like, 8% owned out of Philadelphia, Kenneth Gainwell. He looks like he's got a lot of game. He's sitting behind Miles Sanders, but I think it looks like he's in front of Boston Scott. So Kenneth Gainwell, 8% owned. He's a decent look. Tony Jones had a nice game. Of course, New Orleans was blowing out Green Bay, and Aaron Rodgers and the crew got benched. But Tony Jones had a nice game. He's a backup running back down in New Orleans, 23% owned. Go out and grab him. The other Houston running back, David Johnson, he is 52% owned. I'm going to try to talk about players that are less than 50% owned. But David Johnson scored. He didn't get much usage, but when he scored, he looked like he had a lot of game left. So 52% owned David Johnson. Romandra Stevenson, I really like him. Him and his running back mate had a tough day yesterday, Harris. They both fumbled. But I think the Harris fumble stuck in Belichick's head a little bit more. I read something today that they might tone down his touches. Well, the next person you're going to give him to is got to be Rhamondre Stevenson. Of course, we've got James White over there, who should have been the Super Bowl MVP a few years ago. But if Brady's on the field, you got to give it to him. He's also up in New England. But I do expect Rhamondre Stevenson to come on as the year goes here. Larry Rountree. Rhamondre Stevenson, 24% owned. Larry Rountree III, didn't know much about him. Saw him get a few carries yesterday for the Chargers. He is one of Austin Eckler's backups. He looks very talented. He's only 1% owned. If you've got Eckler, why not? Here's a very, very deep sleeper. Jeff Wilson from the 49ers. Since they've got so much going on in that backfield, He's only 3% owned. He's on the PUP right now, but he's a tough guy. He could be back after week 6. If you've got a PUP or IR spot in your league, I'd pick up Jeff Wilson and see what happens with that San Francisco running game. All right, moving on to the wide receivers that could be on your waiver wire that you should think about getting. Now, Jamison Crowder, 29% owned. I've talked about him a little bit. He was out last week. He should be back in this week. He's only 29% owned. Jamison Crowder, especially in a PPR league, go ahead and grab him. Christian Kirk, huge day for Arizona, only 14% owned. I expect that number to skyrocket. Nelson Aguilar, who actually had a very nice game for New England yesterday, 33% owned. Odds are he's on your wire. Here's my guy, Tim Patrick, only 2% owned for Denver. He's going to be a huge pickup this year. Another guy who actually rings in as a wide receiver and a running back, depending on where you play fantasy. He got a lot of usage. We'll see what happens. Cordero Patterson. It could be an interesting play as the year goes on here. You're always waiting for him to do something, and he always does something. It just doesn't seem to amount to much in fantasy. Maybe this is the year. Zach Pascal, 1% owned. We saw he had a big game yesterday. My guy Michael Pittman, still have a lot of faith in him, but Pascal got a couple touchdowns. He's 1% owned. That number should go up. Rondale Moore over on Arizona, 27% owned. I really like him. I think he's got a lot of potential as the year goes on. They got a lot of mouths to feed over there in Arizona, but only one football. But I do like Rondale Moore. KJ Hamler, more of the low-key pick in my opinion. Of the Denver wide receivers, you could look at the waiver wire. He's only 2% owned. Devonta Parker, this one surprises me. 39% owned. Devonta Parker has always produced. If he manages to stay on the field every game this year, you could see him get north of 10 touchdowns, I bet. And he is 39% owned in most leagues, so you could probably go ahead and grab him. Cedric Wilson, it seems like a long time ago now, Thursday night. Michael Gallup, the third wide receiver for the Cowboys, he went down. We're going to see Cedric Wilson step up a little bit and become one of Dak's targets. He's only less than 1% owned, so he's definitely out there in your league if you need a wide receiver. And then A.J. Green, my guy, I've got a lot of faith in him. He didn't grab all the balls that were thrown in his direction. He's 18% owned. I expect him to fix that as things go. Alrighty, moving on to the tight ends. I love this guy. Run, don't walk. Jawon Johnson. I have him in a league where he has dual designation as a wide receiver and a tight end. He is a big target. We saw him catch 2 touchdowns yesterday. I actually picked him up after the 1 o'clock games before he went off, and looks like it paid dividends. He's only 11% owned. Go ahead and grab him. Run, don't walk. Jared Cook, 26% owned. You know I like him. Gerald Everett, I still think is under-owned, 66%. He scored a touchdown yesterday. Austin Hooper, 52% owned. He started off the game very hot yesterday, cooled off. I think he's going to have a decent year, especially if Odell stays dinged up. And then Evan Ingram is only 37% owned. You can go ahead and grab him. He'll be back sooner rather than later. He's going to be owned at least double that after being back playing for 2 weeks. And then my guy, Big Pat Friarmuth out of Pittsburgh. He got 1 ball yesterday. He looked good getting it, and I really like him. I really like Pat Friarmuth, owned in 8% of leagues. Real quick, I'm going to go back to some wide receivers I missed out on. Randall Cobb owned in 15%. Marquise Valdez-Scantling, 12%. Van Jefferson, nice game last night for the Rams, 2%. And Rhamondre St. Brown, only owned in 7% of leagues. I'd say it's a decent time to go grab him. Tyrell Williams might have a concussion. And now I'm going to move on to my Detroit Lions. I'm going to call this the kneecap segment of the week in honor of their new head coach, Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell, welcome to Detroit. There's a long history here of not winning football games. There's a long history here of making Barry Sanders, Calvin Johnson retire, and having Matt Stafford request a trade all the way to the Los Angeles Rams. Dan Campbell, you started off 0-1. Let's get better. Let's get better. Let's change the water in Allen Park at the training facility. Let's change the water down at Ford Field. Hopefully next week, I'm saying the Lions are 1-1. Have a great week, everybody. Enjoy football.